The Beginning of the Gangjing, The Beginning of the Buffalo, Women author, Poor Su Holai copy. Shi Qing wears the cannon fodder in the book, sees the countdown to his life every day, and learns that in the end he ends up in ruins and hanging on the wall. Shi Qing, oh, don't think about it. Her mother is a censor, and she has spoken upright in the court for so many years and has gone 2 emperors after Shi Qing inherited her mother's mantle. Every time she exits, she feels that she doesn't want to live tomorrow. Usually in the courtroom the new champion heroine gave a speech when she was young and frivolous. Shi Qing, I am 2 months older than you, 3 days, 8 hours, and a quarter. Old and young are orderly, you are disrespectful and unfilial, how can you say that I am young and frivolous? The son of the first beautiful male prime minister in Beijing is said to be a royal dog. Shi Qing, oh, how can I compare to you? Shut up this mouth, the whole capital is waiting for her to learn to restrain herself after marrying her husband. Then the family married her a gentle and virtuous husband, hoping she would learn to love others. Shi Qing lifted his eyelids and knocked the seeds. I have the final say in this family. What do you do if you want to become famous? Be honest and embroider at home. Beginning male. Later Shi Qing discovered that the longer the bar is, the longer the lifespan, and even the male and female protagonists who have more luck. Therefore, the wild horses that had already run away were killed in this book. This article is very simple, simple enough to give you a little relief. C, sweet text, trust me content tags, a match made in heaven. Search keywords, protagonist, Shi Qing supporting role, 20 hours others, not important. 1 sentence introduction, love who intention, keep an optimistic attitude towards life. In the early spring of March, the branches of pears outside the yard were spring-like green shoots, and clusters of pear pollen were as white as snow. It was cold last night, and this morning the water in the big blue-black tank under the eaves was covered with ice. The suddenly cold weather caused a lot of snow, and even the charcoal basin that had been removed in the house was relit. But no amount of hot charcoal can warm the cold heart at this moment. She will die soon. The day before yesterday, she was in high school, and she entered the countdown to her life today. The great joy and great sorrow of life have been caught up by her, and it is not too much to say MMP. Shi Qing sat on the bed with his head folded in his hands, feeling that maybe the way he got up this morning was wrong. She closed her eyes reluctantly and opened them again. In front of her, except for the light blue bed curtain, what she couldn't get rid of was the cold and ruthless transparent panel. Name, Shi Qing. Age, 17. Identity, cannon fodder. She's not even a supporting actress. These are not important, the most important thing is the last health bar called life. The blood volume bottomed out, and only a thin layer of blood skin remained. The red is particularly conspicuous, and the red makes people panic. At best, it can last for 2 days, at worst, it may be 1 or 2 hours. Shi Qing pulled her hair, bent down desperately and buried her face in the quilt, breathing heavily. Why do you see this panel? It has to start with her divorce yesterday. Shi Qing and her mother Shiju met a good friend Shen Yuan when she went to Beijing to take the exam. Afterwards, both of them entered the courtroom as they wished. Shen Yuan had better luck. Because she was studying and not married yet and her skin was good looking, she was married to her by the eldest prince who was still the prince at the time. A year later, Shiju gave birth to a daughter, Shi Qing. The eldest prince gave birth to a son, 1 year younger than her, called Shen Yu. Although the marriage of the 2 families was a verbal agreement, it happened that 1 woman and 1 man were indeed fate, and this matter spread in the capital. Outsiders say that Shi Qing is now 2nd in high school and may marry the son of the Shen family someday. There are so many famous and beautiful people, it's the envy of the whole capital. The facts do not match the rumors. Years have passed, the situation of the court has changed, and the spirit and sense of the past have gradually faded away due to the reality. The eldest prince specially prepared a generous gift at Shijia's banquet yesterday. Everyone in the Shi family thought he came to talk about marriage, but the old man came out to greet him in person with a cane. In the end, they came to break off the marriage. It's not that straightforward, but that's what it means. Although Qing'er and Yu'er haven't seen each other a few times, Yu'er treats her as a sister in her heart. Today, Qing'er's happy day, it's better for you and me. The family officially recognizes a godfather, and it will be a family in the future. Yesterday happened to be crowded, and the news of Shi Qing's divorce spread all over the capital as if it had grown wings. Tan Hua, appointed by the emperor, was divorced by the Shen family, and Shi Qing became a laughingstock in the capital overnight. The fame is still there, but the husband is gone. That is, the moment when Shi Qing was divorced, the plot was activated. Only then did Shi Qing realize that he was a cannon fodder in the concubine's counterattack and a tool to promote the plot. Shen Yu is the white moonlight in the heart of the hero and heroine Changshu. Interestingly, Changshu is the champion of this class. In the book, Shi Qing, the cannon fodder, lost her face because of her divorce. It turned out to be unsuccessful. Shen Yu was rescued by the heroine, and the relationship between the two sprouted a small flame of love, laying the foundation for the future giant ship. Shi Qing was even worse. Her mother was suspended at home because of this incident, and she also lost her fame and title. Since then, she has embarked on the road of blackening, dedicated to adding blockage to the heroine, and was finally pressed by the heroine, who is a very powerful official. The charge of treason was hung on the wall and exposed to the sun for 7 days and 7 nights. No one asked her if she knew anything wrong. The ending of Shi Qing in the book is to die of thirst, and Shi Jia's end is even more tragic. There are still remnants of the lively celebration outside yesterday, and the red lanterns hanging in the yard have not had time to take down. The big girl Mihi, who was supposed to wait for her to get up and wash, is now arguing with people, and the words are clearly passed into Shiking's ears. My master didn't get divorced, he recognized a godfather. Your ear was cut off for cooking yesterday. Didn't you hear what the eldest prince said so clearly? I will hear you chewing on the base of your master's tongue in the future. Be careful, I will cut your tongue with a knife. Honey can't do anything else, only the savage protector. I can't hear others say that she is not good. Now I finally have this chance to live again, so I cherish it. In the past few years, she not only had to adapt to the society of women, but also relearned. Now I finally passed the 3rd flower test, and I was declared dead before I had time to be happy. Life just gave so little sweetness. Just as I was about to put it in my mouth, I was knocked to the ground by fate. The mud rolled in a circle, so dirty that the original color could not be seen. The sound of arguing outside continued. Listening to the movement was like a girl Jinzhen in the old man's courtyard. The other party is yin and yang. If it were normal, Shi Qing would endure it in order to be a good boy. Today, she lifted the quilt and went to the ground, strode out of the room, and opened the thick cloth curtain at the door with a sigh. She came out barefoot and looked at Jinzhen with deep eyes. Shi Qing looks like her father, bright and beautiful, except for a pair of peach blossom eyes that are not smiling like her mother. If it hadn't been too good looking, it wouldn't have been chosen as the 3rd flower. No one knows that the 3rd flower has the best appearance in the top 3 over the years. In the past, Shi Qing's eyes always had a 3-point smile, and he seemed to be easy to get along with. Now his face has cooled down, the smile in his eyes has faded, and the momentum is down, which is actually a bit terrifying. When did Jinzhen see this expression? She shivered in fright. Little master. What's the noise? Shi Qing asked. Mihi saw Shiking and walked out barefoot in a thin middle coat. She didn't care about anything else. She quickly opened the thick cloth curtain that blocked the wind and went in to get the cloak and shoes. Jinzhen saluted. The old man sent me to ask if the little master is awake. Can't you see if I wake up? Shi Qing raised his eyelids and said in a bad tone, even if you couldn't see it just now, you can see it now. She hasn't had a good life for 2 days, is she still telling you about courtesy, righteousness, benevolence, wisdom, trustworthiness? Jinzhen was stunned for a moment. The wind picked up in the early morning, mixed with the coolness of late winter and early spring, and shivered when it was freezing. She turned and walked inside. Maybe she had a good temper in the past. Jinzan turned her arm across to stop her. "Old man, let you pass." Pop a crisp slap slapped on Jinzan's face, interrupting her unfinished words. Shi Qing's palms were numb, his fingers slowly tightened and hung by his side, staring at Jinzan coldly. "You stop me!" She sneered. "You dare to stop me?" Since I heard her and Mihi in the room just now that she had been divorced, a fire was burning in Shiking's chest. She's a dying person, so she won't suffocate herself. Don't mention Jinzan, even if the old man came over, she didn't look good. I love whoever, she will not serve. Can the left and right endings be worse than hanging on the wall and dying of thirst? Shi Qing went straight into the room, and when she passed Jinzan's body, her shoulder deliberately bumped her arm. "Next time you come to this hospital, show me some respect." Shi Qing glanced at her sideways, coldly pressing, "Remember, I am the master." Just like Jinzan, those who didn't know thought she was the granddaughter of the old man. Relying on my grandfather to serve the old man for many years, I really don't take myself as a slave. Jin Zhan covered her face and lowered her head, her eyes twinkling. She answered yes in a low voice, but she didn't see the arrogant look just now. When Mihi ran out with a thick cloak and shoes, she happened to see this scene and almost cried out in excitement. "How can you just slap her, just like Jinzan's mouth that can't spit out ivory, but you can't slap her with both hands? She has to sue when she goes back, so she might as well slap her twice now." Mihi regretted dying. Why didn't she do it? "Quick, quick, 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 pour me a glass of hot water." Shi Qingliang shivered and climbed onto the bed, wrapping the bedding and sitting cross-legged, lips pouting. "I'm freezing to death." The only thing on her body now is the slap that swiped Jinzan just now, which is hot and faintly numb. Shi Qing sniffed at his red palms. "Cool. So cool. It turns out that losing your temper is this feeling." She has been wearing it for 4 or 5 years. The original owner died of illness. She has been cautious since she wore it, for fear that she would look out of tune with this world and be regarded as an alien. After all, in her society, the technology for men to have children has not yet been developed, and here, men should have children. All the male mothers with their pregnant belly and cubs look around. Where has Shiking ever seen such a world? Isn't it just hanging on the wall? Shi Qing held the steaming teacup in both hands, his eyes were shining and his eyes were bright. "She has a hard time, so don't think about being comfortable. Shi Qing has a gorgeous face, which is suitable for publicity and beauty, and she wants to stretch her eyebrows in the face of the sun." She lived too carefully, so that the pearl was covered with a layer of black gauze, and she nodded and lowered her eyebrows to hide her original brilliance. Wuzun world generally praises men only to praise their appearance, and describes the other party as looking like a Luotian, which is breathtakingly beautiful. But who doesn't love beauty? Even if she dies, she has to put on a beautiful shroud and lie in the best coffin before dying. From now on she has wronged no one can wrong herself. "Let's go out," Shi Qing said to Mihi. "It's time to get the custom-made hairpin for Daddy. Tomorrow's birthday, I'll give it to him in advance." Shi Qing was saddened, she finally got such a daddy who loves her. "Okay." Mihi happily opened the closet to choose clothes for Shiking, and her trumpet kept blaring. "If I tell you, you should go out for a walk, and let those who think you become depressed after you get divorced take a good look, my little master, the third flower appointed by the Holy High today, can be rare man. Listen." Shi Qing chose a bright red dress. It was a color she had not dared to try before, but it was unexpectedly suitable. The bright colors made the panel dull and transparent, obscuring the urgency of the life bar. The only bad thing is that the embroidery of this dress is average, and the golden moire on the skirt and sleeves looks like a ball of wool, which has no beauty. When the little master talks about embroidery, he naturally has to count the Yun family. I heard that the young master of her family, Yunji, is very good at embroidering peonies. Shiking didn't know about these, or it was never closed before. Yunji? Shi Qing remembered. Very well, the peony on the shroud is handed over to him. Shi Qing packed up and just stepped out of the hospital, facing the new people sent by the old man. Is this not giving up until I see her? He pouted and whispered to Shiking, Little Master, Jinzan must have sued you. Shi Qing thinks it should not be all. The main reason is probably that she was divorced in public yesterday, which embarrassed the old man. She just added fuel to the fire. Looking at the 3 or 5 people coming from the opposite side, he subconsciously took a step to block Shi Qing. I knew it wouldn't work if I didn't go, but I still pretended to be calm and asked, shall we go? As if she had a choice. He turned her head to look at Shiking, her face full of worry. Otherwise, we should wait for the adults and the Lord to come back from the temple to offer incense. Shi Qing's father Li Shi's birthday is tomorrow. Today, the adults took him to the temple to offer incense. Get up early in the morning and set off, eat fast food in the temple at noon, and estimate that you will be back in the afternoon. Go. Shi Qing sighed. Once some people escape the first day of the new year, they may not be seen on the 15th. How could Shi Qing let himself go with regrets? Besides, the old man asked Jinzan to squat her early in the morning. He must have prepared a lot of words and wanted to train her, so he didn't sleep for the whole night. He turned her head in surprise to see Shiking, thinking she had heard it wrong. After all, the old man doesn't like the master, and he doesn't like the little master Shi Qing very much. And today the little master is willing to take the initiative to go to the old man to scold him. He looked up at the sky. Did the sun come out from the west? Before this morning, Shi Qing really didn't want to go to the old man's place. After all, the old man might not have a good life for a few years when he was old, so she could bear it. It's different now. She and the old man can't tell who is ahead of whom. Since everyone had the same starting point, Shi Qing felt that he didn't need to let him. Shi Qing lowered her eyes to straighten her sleeves, turned her head and said to me, while I still have time, I want to tell the old man a truth. Me was puzzled, what's the point? Her grandfather may still be her grandfather, but his granddaughter cannot always be his granddaughter. Shi Qing didn't let the people sent by the old man make a sound, and said directly, lead the way ahead. This time it was Uncle Chen, who was about the same age as the old man. He was stunned when he heard this, and looked suspiciously at Shi Qing, who held his head high and made a wink that made the few servants around him wink. Follow Shi Qing's master and servant, lest she run away. Usually, when I heard that when I went to the old man's place, I would look like a quail, but today I suddenly turned into a big white goose. I heard that she had beaten Jinzan and thought it was impossible. After all, the little master is notoriously good-natured in the house. Now it seems that there is such a thing. Shi Qing followed Uncle Chen into the old man's inner courtyard when he heard angry voices coming from inside. Did she lose her mind? She was aborted and put her anger on others. It's a great achievement. The old man sat on a large chair, leaning on a smooth polished red chestnut cane in his hand. Although it is already 60 years of age, his head is full of silver threads, but his spirit and body look good, and he is full of energy when he gets angry. Yesterday Shijia lost such a big face, and his anger has not subsided. Today, I heard that Jinzan, who he sent to call Shiking, was beaten by her. Master, you can't be angry, Jinzan is just a person, the little master beat her must be something she did wrong, you can't blame the little master for this. Lao Su wiped his tears. Stand by to persuade. He said it nicely, but the hand that wiped away tears didn't mean to put it down. Jinzan stood next to him, with a slap print on his face, and retorted in a low voice, I did nothing wrong. The old man looked at her left cheek with clear fingers, and said distressedly, what kind of servant is the master? It hurts me to take Jinzan as my granddaughter, who doesn't know about it in the whole house. Jinzan's grandfather, Lao Su, was the servant of Shi's family when he was married, and he kowtowed away after he got married. Afterwards, his wife and master's hometown was plagued by famine, so he returned to Shi's home with his only granddaughter. I have been serving the old man for so many years, saying that he is a slave, and he usually looks like a master. In addition to the old man, the three daughters under him all shouted Uncle Su when they saw him. Jinzan has learned from him, and regards himself as the little master of the Shi family, so he doesn't necessarily take anyone seriously. Today, Shiking slapped him in the face suddenly. He didn't react at the time, and he started complaining after returning to the old man's yard. The old man stuck his cane on the ground and pointed to the yard outside the door. "Did she beat you? She didn't take me as an old man in her eyes." When he pointed his finger over, Shi Qing had just crossed the threshold with his right foot, and as soon as he looked up, he met the old man with a gloomy face and the corner of his mouth pressed down. Shi Qing's heart skipped a beat. He saluted, and shouted, "Grandpa! I'm still a little nervous, after all, I'm used to it. You still know that I am your grandfather." The old man was eccentric. "I thought you were the only one left in the exam." Shi Qing was always dumb, poking beside him as a wooden man, wishing others could not see her. It would be better if everyone's second sister, who was a few days older than her, would come over and displease him. Now the whole capital knows about this. Where is his old face going? Today, I wanted to call Shi Qing over to teach him a few words, but before anyone saw her, she slapped the Jinzan she sent. I was admitted to Tanhua. It's all her father's lack of culture and a vulgar person, who knows nothing but loves him. From his point of view, Shiking's father and daughter's virtues are all incompetent temperaments. Half a pole can't make a fart. The old man put his hands on the crutches, raised his eyelids and looked at Shi Qing who was standing in the middle of the room. He didn't say a word about letting her sit in front of him, he just asked, "Why are you playing Jinzan?" Shi Qing's chest was stuffy and his hair was blocked. He let out a breath of turbid air, raised his eyes to meet the old man, raised his eyebrows slightly. "I still need a reason to hit her. She is the direct daughter of the Shi family, and her status is not as good as a servant in front of the old man. What do you do to respect such an elder?" In the past, she was afraid of things and wanted to cherish the opportunity to live well, but now she can't even live, and she is afraid of a hammer. Shi Qing walked from the middle of the room to the side, pulled a chair and sat down. She hadn't eaten yet in the morning. Seeing the dim sum on the old man's table, she was suddenly hungry. She pointed to the plate. "Jinzan, bring me that plate of red bean cake. It is not called mihi, but calendula." Jinzan was dumbfounded. Does Shi Qing know whose yard this is? Does she dare to call herself? Lao Su held the handkerchief in his hands, with a fake smile on his wrinkled face, and said softly, "The little master can command the people in the old man's courtyard very easily." This means completely disregarding the old man. Shi Qing adjusted to a comfortable posture and sat crooked on the chair, looked up at Lao Su, "Then don't be idle, go and bring me a cup of hot tea." It really gave him a face. "How old are you?" Lao Su was in the mansion, no one dared to call him except the old man. He suddenly heard that Shi Qing asked himself to pour tea, and almost went over in anger. When Shi Qing was educated, he didn't see him half satisfied with himself. "Since you said I'm uneducated." Shi Qing took a deep breath and stood up and walked in front of Jinzan, met Jinzan's provocative gaze, raised his left hand towards her right face and pumped again neatly a slap in the face. One left and one right, especially symmetrical. Shi Qing shook his numb hand. "Then I'm not educated to show you." Beating a minion in front of the master is called being uneducated. The old man was speechless in shock, and Jinzan himself did not respond. She thought she was relying on the old man, and Shi Qing would definitely be punished today, but who knew that Shi Qing slapped her again in front of the old man? The crisp sound hit everyone. Shi Qing said, "Grandpa, didn't you ask me why I hit Jinzan? That's the reason." She sneered, her eyes slowly moved from Jinzan's face to Lao Su, and stopped. My Shi's daughter, Jinky Tanhua, can't use 2 servants in my house. Is this family's surname Shi or Jin? Shi Qing looked at his red palm. Am I going to be accused by Xingxi of even hitting a disobedient servant? The last sentence was addressed to Lao Su. The people in the house respectfully call you Uncle Su because she is a well-mannered person. You rely on other people's respect to betray the old, and you are shameless and can't recognize your own identity. As long as I'm still my surname, in this house, I'm the master, the others. Shi Qing put down his hands and looked at Lao Su and Jin Zhan. His voice was slow and his words were clear, only a slave. Don't say she's wrong, she's right, I can smoke her too. Shi Qing blocked everyone's mouth with one sentence. Lao Su wanted to rely on the old man to sell the old fake and cry, but he didn't dare to cry. He glanced at the old man from the corner of his eye. Are you good at it? You can't afford to pass the exam, right? The old man stood up angrily, shaking his hand and pointing at Shiking. Then don't get divorced, don't let the Shi family become a joke in the whole capital. The point is finally here. The big deal is to find another one. As long as I get married quickly, the joke will not catch up with me. Shi Qing bit the lipstick bean cake and said, I think who is that? She forgot her name, turned around and asked me, what is the name of the embroidered peony? I only remember the embroidery of each other's peony. Mihi's eyelids twitched, and she bent over to remind in a low voice, Yunji. Shi Qing nodded, yes, I think Yunji is very good, I like it very much, just marry him. The old man almost vomited out a mouthful of blood, and was sat down by the servants. His breath was uneven, and he looked sick at any time. Yun family? Have you seen him? What can you like about him? Shi Qing didn't look at him at all, just let him pretend. The old man's voice was full of energy before entering the door just now. Seeing his body is so tough, Shi Qing was relieved. As for what is in the cloud? Shi Qing didn't hesitate, I just like the way he is gentle, understanding, virtuous, and good at embroidering peonies. Mainly embroidering peonies. At this time, the Yun family. Ye Qing walked into the back room with a black box in her hand, but she didn't see her little son left or right, so she couldn't help but open the window and look out. In the early morning on the pear tree in the courtyard, the little boy who was supposed to be sitting in front of the embroidery frame and embroidering peony was sitting leisurely on the branch of the tree. The wind picked up, and the snow-white pear blossoms danced beside him with black hair. Yu Qing stood in front of the window, only the fair skin of the young man could be seen from the side, like a good cool white glaze, and even the pear flowers around him would lose 3 points to him. Su Shi heard his movement, and the man on the tree turned his head and looked over here. This person on the tree is not someone else, but the young master of the Yun family who embroidered alluring peonies, Cloud Executive. Yu Qing stared blankly at the young man on the tree, the strange feeling in her heart always lingered. Sitting in front of the embroidery frame and embroidering peony repeatedly every day from morning to night, when the pain is depressed, the needle will stick to the pulp of the finger. Jiangnan Yunjia is famous for its fabrics and embroidery, especially its lifelike embroidery. Decades ago, when it was the most popular, no one knew that any new embroidery from the Yun family would always be looted. Identity. It's just that the wealthy juniors are unwilling to endure hardships in these years, the talents of the clan are gradually withering, and the embroidery workers are worse than each generation. Substitute fabrics. Jingcheng Yunjia is a side branch of Jiangnan Yunjia separated by 2 mountains. Although the signboard has the word cloud, the things it sells have nothing to do with Jiangnan Yunjia until Yunji was born grow up to embroider. He is a genius of return to the ancestors in the family, and his embroidery is a must, especially the embroidered peony, which is really national color and heavenly fragrance. 3 years ago, the flower blossom season was famous for Beijing. However, good people always have some miserable life experiences. For example, Yunji desperately embroidered peonies in order to save money for his father's treatment. His father was a servant in the family. He bought it from the street for 2 taels of mica. When I was young, I was able to win the heart of mica with a little beauty. After giving birth to a child, I was quickly forgotten by mica in the backyard of the house, and I didn't even come to visit when I was sick. Yunji took a needle at the age of 6, and is 16 this year. After 10 years of lighting the lamp and boiling oil, he still failed to keep his father. After Yun's father passed away, Yunji seemed to have his spine removed, and his whole person lost his tenacity and anger. Yu Qing didn't see it half a year ago. Yunji fell into the pool in the courtyard, and when he woke up, he was a different person. It is like a dead grey-brown old tree pulling out delicate green branches and becoming fresh and alive. I still remember the first 2 days when he woke up. He seemed to be insane, and it seemed strange to see everything. I happened to meet a man with a pregnant belly in the house. His eyes widened in shock and he was gasping for air, as if he had been greatly impacted and stimulated, and he shrunk in the house for several days. "Come over." Ye Qing still remembers that when he sat cross-legged on the bed, his face was pale, as if he had lost the ability to speak. He made an arc with his hand on his stomach. He is sick, right?" Ye Qing was stunned. "No, he is pregnant with a child, it should be 8 months by month." "Pregnant, child. The voice was trembling. "Yes, we men are meant to give birth to life. It's just that Yunji's health is not good, and her menstrual period has been postponed until now. The doctor said it was too late for him. You can only have children when you are on your period." Yunji clasped the bedpost with both hands, knocked her white forehead on it, her phoenix tail was blushing, her teeth clenched her lower lip, and she held back her tears. At that time, Ye Qing just felt that the young master seemed to have forgotten something until the first time he saw him climbing a tree. It was as light as a cat, and the tiptoes jumped on the tree trunk, and the startled Yaqing almost screamed. He sat on it like today, looking into the distance. Qing Ling's eyes seemed to be covered with a layer of mist, and his vision became distant. He said he didn't want to embroider, he wanted to go to Jianghu. Ye Qing realized that the little boy had really changed. He didn't dare to think deeply. After all, what the young master said the most was, "Why am I born in the Yun family? If I live in a different way, I should be more comfortable." The little boy may have changed his way of life. "Little boy!" Yu Qing called him in a low voice, "Come down quickly and be seen carefully." Yunji put away the dangling leg, and squatted on the branch with his legs without a man's image. "Yuking, have you got anything?" "I got it." Ye Qing was afraid that Yunji would be seen like this. "Come down quickly." Yunji smiled. "Okay." Yunzi is like a light blue pear tree leaf, with the wind spreading its arms and falling lightly from the branch. Yu Qing raised his heart, and was relieved until he saw his body lightly land on the ground with his toes. The hem of a man's house should not be tucked into the waistband, it's indecent. Ye Qing trotted out, bent over and stretched out his hand to put Yunji's hem of his clothes in order for him to put down. Yunji didn't care about these details at all. He reached out and took the black box, his eyes shining brightly. He is finally free. The box contains nothing but ashes from the bottom of the pot. Yunji was born in a family of martial arts. He is a rare martial arts prodigy in a century. However, the year he was born, a fortune teller came to approve his life, saying that before he was 16, there was a catastrophe, and as long as he avoided it, his life would be smooth sailing. The Yun family's parents are just this precious son, only what the fortune teller said. Since he was a child, he never let Yunji go out alone, let alone wandering the rivers and lakes, the farthest place he can walk. It's the chicken coop in the backyard. Yun's Hikong has a strong martial art that can only be used to kill chickens every day, feeling buried. The words of the fortune teller may be alarmist and not true. Yunji's patience broke out on the day when his parents were away, secretly packed 2 clothes and slipped out of the house. He stood on the wall of his own courtyard, looked into the distance, opened his arms and closed his eyes to enjoy, feeling that the breath of the rivers and lakes had come to his face. Yunji jumped, and when he woke up, he was salvaged from the pool. Not only did he fail to go to the rivers and lakes, but he was really told by the fortune teller and fell into a world that was completely opposite to where he used to live. In the 2 days after waking up, the 3 views of Yunji were washed back and forth, and now they are numb. He originally wanted to keep his body in the Yun family for a while, but the smeared Yun family lord always forced him to embroider peonies. Too much. Yun executive figured it out, it's time to run away. He had learned some Jianghua crafts from the servants in the family before, and today he is going to go over the wall to make some money. Shi Qing was driven out of the yard by the old man with a cane. How uneducated! The street is still lively, and the morning market has been opened in the early morning. In the past, Shi Qing just thought it was novel and interesting, but now I look at it with reluctance every time I look at it. She really hasn't lived enough, and she likes this different world very much. Why, can't I give her a chance to live? She just wants to live, why is it so difficult? When Shi Qing was halfway there, he suddenly stopped. She saw a divination booth. Not professional at first sight. Shi Qing put away his clothes and squatted in front of him to look at the lottery. Yunzi opened for the first time today, and a well-dressed guest came, and he was a little nervous for a while. On the contrary, Ye Qing, who was beside him, was secretly pulling his sleeve, implying that it was a fat sheep. As long as they slaughter hard, they will have money. At that time, you can take a sedan chair to the rivers and lakes. Rivers and lakes. Whether you go to the rivers and lakes or the rivers and seas, you always have money in your hand. With the money, they can hire a sedan chair to sit there. How tiring to walk. After falling into the water half a year ago, I fell mad. Except for the old master's medical treatment, the rest of the money was used by him to hire a doctor. Now there are only a few copper plates left in the money box. Today, the 2 of them sneaked out. The young master asked him to get some ash from the pot, saying that he had the craft of making money and could make a lot of money. Yu Qing also thinks about it, no matter how good the peony embroidery is, the big money belongs to the lord, and only the small money is left in the hands of the young master. If there is no middleman like the master, they can make a lot of money. Yu Qing never imagined that the young master's craftsmanship was for fortune-telling. However, the 2 of them were lucky, and the first guest at the opening was dressed and looked good. The good Shi Qing did not live up to his expectations. He turned around and stretched out his hand to let Mihi bring his purse over. A heavy one. She doesn't have much else, but she has a lot of money. Mihi, do you believe in fate? Although Shi Qing hides the transparent panel in front of him, it does not mean that it is not there. Mihi squatted beside Shi Qing and was stunned when she heard this, as if she had never thought about this issue. If the plot hadn't been activated, Shi Qing wouldn't have thought about it. She looked at the lottery. I believe in fate. Shi Qing took out a piece of gold ingot and looked at the master and apprentice on the opposite side. Is this signature correct? I am not allowed not to give money. From the moment the gold was taken out, the eyes of the master and servant of Yunji were all on Shi Qing's hands. Some people are stupid and have a lot of money. No matter how dark Yunji's face was, it couldn't hide the light in his eyes after seeing the gold. He looked clearly, without hesitation, exactly. Shi Qing weighed gold ingots and smiled, I like you with confidence. Yunji picked up the lottery, I'll shake one for you. Shi Qing clasped his hands together and looked at the lottery in the other's hand with a pious expression. Yunji's eyes stared straight at the gold ingot in her hand. He is so short of money. In the past 2 days, the rouge gouache painted Yun family master has given him an ultimatum, if you are still lazy and refuse to embroider, I will marry you off and eat rice at home. Let Yunji take a sword to carve flowers, and let him embroider with a needle, you are just embarrassing me, young master Yun. At this moment, Yunji touched his aching conscience and made up his mind, cheat this time. I feel sorry for her. Fortune telling has a trick to make money, and almost all experts in the industry know it. That is, at the beginning, you must not let the other party draw a good sign, otherwise who is willing to spend money to eliminate disasters? The richer the person, the more they believe it. Yunji shakes the lottery. Pop. Signed off to the ground. Shi Qing picked it up and looked at it. Under the sign, everything is not going well. Shi Qing was silent. Yunji is about to move. He stared at the piece of gold, and before he could say I have a way to crack it, he saw the other party throw the sign back to him. Shi Qing was expressionless and refused to accept the result. No, try again. How can there be such a sign? Yunji frowned, his dark face couldn't hide the clear surprise. He looked dazed, seeking for a sign is about sincerity and spirit. My heart is too sincere. Shi Qing put the gold back in the purse and exchanged it for a piece of silver. Party A is preparing to withdraw the capital, and put forward a new request, recalculate. She can't be sure. Yunji hurt the piece of gold, and reluctantly shook it again. Pop! The sign fell off. Shi Qing picked it up and looked at it. Winning the lottery means that she can't do anything right now, and it's best to be quiet. Hey, are you waiting to die? Shi Qing looked at Yunji, suspecting that he was an undercover agent sent by the heroine. Yunji's eyelids twitched, and she heard her say, let's count. If she can't find a sign that satisfies her today, Shi Qing doesn't plan to leave. She replaced the whole piece of silver with broken silver, and then it should be copper. The more money they count, the more they count, the less they count. Looking at the few copper plates on the ground, Yunji almost knelt down for her. I met her today, and it was my own bad luck. The lottery of Yunji's fate. Wipe off a sleeve of pot ashes. I am not satisfied at this time. The original gold became silver, the silver became broken silver, and the broken silver became a handful of copper plates, and now there are only 2 copper plates left by her. Seeing Shi Qing stretched out his hand to pick up one of them, Yunji's eyelids twitched, and anxiously patted the back of her hand. Stay alive, sister. Give. The tone is rather helpless. Not to mention Yunzi, even Buddha can be mad at such a devout believer. Shi Qing took it over and looked at it. Shi Qing raised his eyebrows, and finally showed a sincere smile on his face, showing off reservedly, oh, I knew my life was good. Hey! Yunji hotly tugged at his collar and fanned, and his good upbringing restrained his urge to roll his eyes and swear. If you look down at the wooden sign at your feet, you will not say such a thing. The ashes from the pot on his neck were smeared to the collarbone. With such a careless tug, the fair and jade-like skin under the shirt was too conspicuous. Yao Qing reacted quickly, put her hand around Yunji's shirt and winked at him. Yunji looked stiff for a moment, and retracted his hand embarrassedly. He forgot what kind of women's society this is. Shi Qing and Mihi, who were opposite the master and servant, didn't notice at all, they only had wooden signs in their eyes. In the face of survival, a man is a fart. He was naked, so Shi Qing didn't hesitate to take a look. Mihi asked in a small voice, Little master, didn't you say you believe in fate? Not to mention the master and servant of Yunzi, even Mihi was stunned by Shi Qing's operation. She looked at the 7 or 8 wooden signs on the ground. This is a letter, a life? Who do you believe in? Shi Qing flicked the copper plate into Yunji's hand, and stood up holding the sign. The sun had just risen, and the sheen was shining behind her. Life. Even if it's self-comfort, it's okay to be happy for a while. Shi Qing was happy, but Yunji felt that he was being tricked. He looked up at the money bag hanging on his waist, his eyes twinkling. I was busy for a long time today, although I only earned 1 copper, but Shi Qing taught him a truth. That is, people cannot speak their conscience. The money is man-made. Yunji decided to go over the wall and steal her house tonight. Her conscience won't hurt, why should she? Shi Qing took the sign that he asked for, lifted his foot and stepped into a jeweled shop Babao Court. The largest jewelry store in Beijing, covering an area of more than 200 square meters, with a total of 3 floors. As the most functional store, Babao Pavilion has both Beijing fashion and custom designs. Shi Qing hand-painted drawings, and customized a hosta for her father as a birthday gift. In the first 2 days, I was in the middle of the flower, and then I was divorced in public. There are many things, so I just came to pick it up today. Shiking came earlier. Babao Pavilion has not had any real guests yet, only the young people are counting the goods and cleaning the porcelain on the wiper. What do you want to buy, your honored guest? Seeing the guest come to the door, the steward standing behind the counter to clear the account closed the account book in his hand and greeted him from behind. The other party was a woman in her 30s or 40s, wearing a royal blue winter robe, with a chubby figure and a smile on her face. Seeing that it was Shi Qing, she immediately handed over to Hershey. It turned out to be Mr. Ah, what wind brought you here? The wind of death. Shi Qing was admitted to Tanhua but has not yet held a specific position. At this time, calling her a young adult is a compliment but not so appropriate. I'll get the hairpin. Shi Qing was so in a mood to be too lazy to be serious, he took out the document from his arms and handed it to the manager. Su surnamed, took the list and looked carefully. Okay, that's the lotus hairpin, right? Wait for me for a while, I'll fetch it for you. The hairpin was ready 2 days ago. I've been thinking about when you will come to pick it up. Susan Shi casually pointed at a small second. I haven't served tea yet. Shi Qing sat in the lobby on the first floor and waited, while Susan Shi lifted the curtain and went to the backyard warehouse. Shi Qing maintained the position just now, and asked, "Is this all right?" Me, he asked her suspiciously. "Little master, what's up?" "No, did it go so smoothly?" Shi Qing turned his head to look at me. His tone was a little unbelievable. I thought there was something unexpected. She has never been involved with smoothness. Now things are so simple, she can't believe it. Shi Qing looked at the wooden sign in his hand, let out a breath and sat on the chair with a smile. It's quite accurate. Good luck, everything goes well. He smiled and followed her. It's quite accurate. After all, they are selected one by one, and they are not required. Little Er came up with hot tea and melon seed cakes. Shi Qing was not in the mood to eat, and kept looking at the curtain leading to the warehouse, waiting for her hairpin. There will be no surprises, she is the woman who shakes the sign. There is a few % chance that she will meet her, who can have such good luck with her. Daddy really has nothing to say to her, and I can't wait to dig out my heart for her. Shi Qing has been struggling with contradictions, fear, and guilt, but can't help but approach. She has no family, no pure and unreserved affection. But whoever treats her well, she tries her best to be kind to whomever. Daddy Li is different from the big lord of the son of a small official. He is the son of a nouveau riche in Qingshan County, she's hometown. The old man hated the most handsome man who had never read in his life. He was always dissatisfied with Li Shi and picked on him everywhere. In order to please him, Mrs. Li dresses very low-key and restrained. Only then did Shi Qing think of giving him a jade hairpin, which is neither ostentatious nor extravagant. This hairpin was made by the palace of the Qing dynasty, and it was Su Zhang who received her at that time. She said she was beautiful when she saw the drawing. The head of the hairpin is carved in the shape of a lotus flower, the petals are clearly opened, and the details are clearly drawn, even the stamens. The jade is warm and moist, and the lotus is elegant. The most important thing is that it is carved from a whole piece of jade, which not only tests the craftsmanship of the master, but also tests the financial resources of Shiking. Manager Su asked a lot at the time, it must be given to someone very important, right? For Shi Qing, Daddy is the most important person in the world, there is nothing wrong with him. Su Guanqi's face was a little ugly, and the most important thing was that his hands were empty. Shi Qing supported the armrest of the chair and slowly sat back. She feels that the next thing is suitable for sitting and listening. Scent? Who gave it to? Shi Qing was puzzled. The hairpin is customized by me, and the documents are all here. Why didn't I receive it? Has she been burned before she died? Be early. Manager Su was also embarrassed. She happened to be away that day, and the little shopkeeper didn't understand business. Treasurer Su has already asked about the ins and outs of the matter just now. The hairpin was just finished and delivered the day before yesterday, and the little shopkeeper sat on the back of the chair with his legs crossed, playing with the jade wrench in his hand, and said casually, "Done?" Chant. Little Er is also a fool. Who is it for? How do I know who she gave it to? The little shopkeeper blew his fingers and wiped his robe lightly. Didn't she say anything? Xiao Er thought about it for a while, said it was for an important person. Oh, it's for a man. The little shopkeeper lifted his eyelids and glanced at the list. Shi Qing. She slapped her lips. Isn't this who is engaged to the son of the Shen family? She is very beautiful in high school today, and she is very beautiful, and this hairpin is 80% given to Shen Yu. Come on, you help send her to the Shen family. Where did you send it? The Shen family. Shi Qing took a breath and stood up in surprise. She said why the eldest prince hurriedly came to break off the marriage between her and Shen Yu. The feeling was seeing the hairpin thinking that she was in a hurry to marry Shen Yu, so she was in a hurry to say it clearly. My family is now famous in the capital. It turned out to be the blessing of your shop. Fortunately, she went out early today, otherwise someone must be pointing at her and laughing at her back when there are many people. Shi Qing knew that fate would not let her as a cannon fodder. Things certainly didn't go so well. What a sign, what a feudal superstition. She had already seen that the stall owner was unprofessional and definitely a liar. Fortunately, she, a flower that grew up under the red flag of a socialist atheism, never believed in this stuff. Shi Qing patted the sign that he held all the way on the small table next to him. I don't care who you give the hairpin to, now the owner of mine is here, I want my hairpin. It's not her fault that the goods were sent to the wrong person, either reship her and make one today, or go to her and ask for it back. If you rush to make it, Su Zhang said embarrassedly, I'm afraid it will be too late, the hairpin is exquisitely crafted, at least 3 or 5 days. And the best Hessian white jade, where is the store willing? Then go get me the hairpin. Shi Qing sat on the chair, grabbed the seeds from the plate and knocked them up. At this moment, she has some appetite. Anyway, the matter can't be over with a sentence or two, so let's talk slowly. Shiking oil and salt do not enter, I'm still my father's daughter. I didn't give the things, I don't care, I only know the reason why I come to the store to get things with the receipt. Me. Shiking spat out the shell of the melon seeds on the table, and pointed to the door, if I can't get my hairpin today, just stand there and shout. Mihi Malu answered, Little master, how do you say how to shout? I can't do anything else, so I will be loud. Shi Qing teased and looked at Suzanji, just shouting Babayage store is deceiving the owner, defrauding consumption, deceiving things. Her legs were crossed, her arms were on her knees, and she raised her eyes and raised her eyebrows at Suzanji. I am now famous, I am not afraid of biting if there are more lice, let's see who loses the most. She has face. Although the two have broken off their marriage now, but they can't be husband and wife, they can be siblings. Just a hairpin, give it to Shen Yu, I'm too embarrassed to come back. You're quite right. Shi Qing tapped melon seeds, just like the ornamental mice raised in the homes of dignitaries. Suzanji nodded in agreement. She knew that Shi Qing was good at talking, but no one didn't know that Shi Qing was good-natured and afraid of things. Shi Qing looked forward to shopkeeper Su and said, but I don't listen. Su Zhang was almost stunned. I want my hairpin, go and get it back. Shi Qing is embarrassed, what is she embarrassed about? The things belonged to her, and she didn't say that she would give it to Shen Yu. It would be embarrassing if she didn't come back. She seemed like a licking dog. Manager Su has no choice, and he next to her has started drinking water to moisten her throat. She wiped the sweat from her forehead, and called the little ER who delivered the things that day. I went to get the hairpin back, and said I sent it wrong. This is the fault of Babao Pavilion. It is impossible for such a big shop to be ruined by a hairpin. Susan, she just didn't expect Shi Qing to be a different person today, and it was difficult to deal with it. Could that be a rumor? Shi Qing grabbed the melon seeds again, and as it should be, isn't that the truth? Since everyone knew it, she didn't hesitate to reinstall it. What's wrong with her shiking stingy? If it wasn't for her stinginess, she would have been deceived by that little liar who fortune teller just now. Sample, don't let her meet again in the future. A hairpin? What hairpin? There was a rumor from the concierge just now that the second child of Babao Pavilion was asking to see the young master, saying that there was a wrong hairpin. And compensation. This still caused dissatisfaction with the water chestnut. There is no reason for the hairpin to go back. Shi Shiking is too stingy. Water chestnut is not light. When our young master is who, our Shen family can still be missing a hairpin. The two just broke off their marriage yesterday, and Shi Qing will come to the hairpin today. This is to see that the marriage fails and wants to return the things that were sent out. What excuse is there to collude with Babayage to say that it was sent by mistake? Bah! Fortunately, the young master has broken off the engagement with her. How can such a stingy woman be worthy of our young master? The face of water chestnut gas turned red, and it was not only embarrassing when it spread out, even his young master would be criticized. Shi Qing didn't care that she was thick-skinned, but his young master couldn't be shameless. Little ER lowered her head and bowed her waist, not daring to refute. With an embarrassed look on her face, Sir was still waiting for her hairpin in the store. Looking at that posture, I'm afraid I won't let it go. She doesn't care if the water chestnut is angry or not, what she cares about is whether she can get the hairpin back. Then let her wait. When water chestnut was about to scold, Qing was stopped by someone. Qing Lingling's voice came from the warm pavilion, as crisp and cool as the collision of jade. Water chestnut, go get the hairpin and return it to Xiao Er. Water chestnut stomping, master. He waited for a few moments, and when he saw that there was no other sound coming from the warm pavilion, he reluctantly turned around to get something. In the warm pavilion, Shen Yu, dressed in a silver-white winter robe, held his sleeves and a pen in one hand, standing in front of the book desk and looking down at the green bamboo on the paper. The hairpin was actually delivered the day before yesterday and Shen Yu didn't intend to take it. His marriage with Shi Qing was just a verbal remark from his mother back then that couldn't be taken seriously, and when Shi Qing suddenly sent the hairpin over, Shen Yu was embarrassed. It was only after the water chestnut opened the box that he hesitated. The white hosta placed on the red velvet base cloth is luster and warm, and the red color is as soft as white jade oil. But it is not that the hairpin is a treasure, but the meaning contained in it. As my father said, it is possible to be a husband and wife and be a brother and sister. I didn't expect it, just sent it wrong. The tip of the pen drips on the drawing paper in front of you, smearing an incompatible ink spot. Shen Yu put down the pen, rolled up the green bamboo picture and put it in the wastebasket, took out a new piece of paper and spread it out on the bookcase. Little Er smiled and hugged the box tightly and apologized again and again. Tell Shi Qing, I've only opened this hairpin, but I haven't tried it on. A gloomy voice came from the warm pavilion, and there was no emotion at all. He didn't put the hairpin on, so Shi Qing can still give it away. Little Er doesn't understand the meaning of the words, Shiking should understand. Shi Qing certainly understands. She not only understands hairpins, she also knows how to make up for her losses. I gave a hairpin to someone else, and when you get it back, it's second-hand, don't you think you'll pay for it? Shi Qing smashed the seeds and looked at Su Steward. Manager Su stopped turning over the account book, his eyelids twitched, and hesitantly said, "Sir, there is no such precedent in our store." "No." Shi Qing patted the crumbs of the melon seeds on his palms, walked over to lie on the counter and said to Mr. Su, "That's it now. Someone has to set the precedent." Shi Qing doesn't mind a little bit of grievance, being the first to eat crabs. "I'm not an unreasonable person, so just look at the hairpin's work fee for free." "Since you say I'm unreasonable," Shi Qing raised his eyebrows, "then I will reason with you." She leaned against the cabinet and snapped her fingers, "I'm only 17 years old this year, and I've won the third flower at a young age. The future will definitely be unlimited, right?" Manager Su looked at her vigilantly. Shi Qing smiled with pure kindness on her face, "After I become an official in the dynasty, if I mention to my colleagues about Babao Pavilion sending the wrong hairpin, I don't know if it will affect your shop." "What about reputation?" "I can't do anything else, I just like to chat with people. Don't worry, when there is a civil and military man in the Manchu dynasty who doesn't know about this, I can't do it. Although she won't live long, she can draw very big cakes. People can die, but they cannot eat. This is already a clear threat." Su Zhenqi looked at Shiking silently, and reminded politely, "Sir Xiao, we can grow this store in the capital without any background. How about giving each other face?" Shi Qing pondered, with a sincere tone, "Do you think I am someone who wants to save face?" "You are not, you are the one who wants money." Shi Qing is not afraid of offending the Shen family, but is she afraid of losing face? "It's about the hairpin, the eldest prince will put the blame on her sooner or later." Shi King Niao didn't slap him, and gave him extra eyes. If the eldest prince held her and Shi Qing dared to see him, I wonder if he would dare to see him at night. Su Zhenqi closed her eyes, she really couldn't do anything about it. Shi Qing herself is a new talent, the new darling in front of the emperor, and her mother is even more difficult to deal with. The most important thing is that she takes care of it. Seeing that Jiang Su had figured it out, Shi Qing reached out and patted her shoulder with relief, "Be generous, just buy a lesson." Su Zhenqi's shoulders sank, and he looked up at her, as if he had met Shi Qing for the first time. When she was in the third flower in the test 2 days ago, everyone was talking about it, saying that Shi Qing was ordinary, and she had never been seen before, so why did she win the third flower in silence? After all, compared to this year's new champion Changshu, Shi Qing is really inconspicuous. Now that I look at Shi Qing again, Su Zhenqi actually thinks that if such a person is serious, middle-level champions are not a problem. She's a rogue. She's a mediocre robber. She is a Loki, fearful and good-natured person. Is she blind? Which of the above words can she relate to? Shi Qing is not really a rogue. She walked in the direction of the new product and stopped in front of a golden hairpin. Manager Su reseals the opened box under the conditional radiation, and shakes his head like a thief. It is the bottom line to avoid the manual cost of the hairpin, this really can't be given any more. Be yourself. A little face will do. Shi Qing snorted, "It's not that I don't give money, you take me as someone. We didn't dare to treat you like a human. Suitable person. This hairpin is complex and gorgeous, it is really beautiful, and it is really difficult to control. But anyone who looks dull will feel tacky when wearing it. But her dad is different." Shi Qing's appearance is 6 points similar to her father Li's, both of which are bright and gorgeous. Only such a flamboyant temperament can suppress the vulgarity of gold and highlight the beauty of gold hairpins. "Just this one, I bought it." Shi Qing was afraid that the old man would pick on his father's fault, so he thought of customizing a Loki hosta. Think about it now, he's an ass. When leaving Babao Pavilion, he was holding 2 boxes and half a bag of melon seeds. Shi Qing thought that Babaoj melon seeds tasted good, so he ordered some by the way. Manager Su was also generous, carrying the melon seeds to the door in person, and politely said, "Let's go." For fear of delaying her business. It's an outsider. When returning to the original road, Shi Qing went to find the stall just now, but he couldn't find it. Count him as fast. Shi Qing was not in a hurry to go back, but went to a few places and bought a big one. Until Yehi in the mansion ran over out of breath and said to Shi Qing, "Little master, your excellency and master came back ahead of time and are asking you to pass." Shi Qing looked out at the sky and wondered, "Isn't it noon? Why did my parents go back to the house early? I used to go to the temple to give incense until late in the evening." The old man sent someone to call. Yehi said, "The old man is very angry, saying that you have lost your mind, not only contradicting him, but also marrying the young master of the Yun family. Otherwise it would be hard to explain how she woke up like a different person. The old man wants her mother to treat her. Is there anyone who is afraid of shiking? There really is, that is her mother Shiju." In front of her, Shi Qing always felt a guilty conscience, as if the other party could see through that he was not the original owner, but he didn't know why he didn't reveal it. The feeling of being pinched in pigtails is the reason why Shi Qing has been low-key and unassuming for so many years. Then go back first. Shi Qing turned his head and said to the guy in the store, "Send it to me when it gets dark, just the one I liked just now, don't make a mistake." "Okay." Yeah, he saw it just now, but didn't dare to ask. She twisted her neck stiffly to look back at the row of seepage coffins, her heart trembled with fright, her hands and feet were cold, and she quickly turned her head back. What is the little master coming to the coffin shroud shop for? Although the old man is not likable, he is not guilty of death. Shi Qing didn't know what Yehi was thinking. She had already made things clear about herself. The coffin was the most spacious and beautiful, and the shroud was a solid color with no patterns. After marrying Yunji, let him start embroidery. No other styles, just embroider the peony he is good at. After returning home, Shi Qing took a deep breath and stepped into his parents' yard. No matter what her mother says, Yunji is married. She and her embroiderers can't be separated except life and death. The author has something to say, Yun Shaoxia, this is a bit embarrassing, mainly. I can't embroider. Shi Qing, don't be humble, you can definitely do it. Yun Shaoxia, I really can't subordinate, it was spread out, the young master said he couldn't. When entering the door, she cleared her chest and held a breath, as if there was a pigtail behind her head being held by Shiju in the palm of her hand. Whenever she didn't do well enough, the other party would take it out to scare her out of nowhere. How can someone who can be a censor of the capital in the inspectorate and be re-elected as emperor for 2 consecutive terms is really a brainless and stubborn bull? This is clearly a smiling fox. Shi Qing calmed down and lifted his foot across the threshold. Shiju was sitting on a chair reading a book. When she saw Shi Qing coming in, she just lifted her eyelids. Contrary to her indifference, Mrs. Li next to her immediately put down the pastry plate in her hand and greeted her. Daddy bought you chestnuts that you like to eat. Li Shizheng was bright and flamboyant, but nay, he was wearing a dark blue robe, which made him in his 30s look old-fashioned. Although the old man always said that Mrs. Li had never read books, he really had nothing to say to his daughter and wished he could give Shiking everything he could. Enjoying this gentle, patient and unreserved fatherly love, Shi Qing felt guilty for a while. Shi Qing's heart was sour, and he was about to ask Mihi behind him to take out the golden hairpin he bought when he heard Shiju on the chair asking, "I heard you. Did you hit Jinsen?" "I didn't ask why, only question." Shi Qing asked herself, she has been wearing the character of a good daughter in the past few years. It was all ice water, so I passed the test. Besides, she didn't want to occupy the magpie's nest, the original owner was already dead when she came. It was never her fault. She doesn't hold her nose as a granddaughter. Shi Qing took a deep breath and exhaled slowly, feeling that the braid she was caught was cut off by herself. Simple and relaxed. That's right, I did. Not only did I hit Calendula, I also. Shi Qing looked directly at Shiju with a straight face, stretched out 2 fingers, and solemnly emphasized, 2, twice. The left and the right are quite symmetrical. Shi Qing supported Li's arm and walked towards the chair. If you don't believe me, let Jinzan come over and I'll show you again. Isn't she a slave? When I beat her, I don't think my hands are tired. Does she dare to think her face hurts? Give her a face, right? Shiju was stunned for a moment by Shi Qing's straightforward attitude, and even the movement of turning the book paused. Only then did she raise her eyes to look at Shi Qing formally, and her fingers followed the movement just now and turned the pages of the book, as if turning over the previous topic. I also heard that you are going to marry the young master of the Yun family. Shi Qing unceremoniously pulled up a chair and sat beside Mrs. Li. He lowered his head and peeled the chestnuts without raising his head. Yunji and I are a match made in the heavens, and it is very suitable for me to marry him. Shi Qing's attitude is casual, which is completely opposite to the timid attitude of Shiju, who even asked, "What else did you hear?" Shi Qing seemed unaware. After peeling the chestnuts and handing them to Mrs. Li, his attitude changed in seconds. "Dad, eat it." Li's face was gentle. "I bought it for you. Isn't that a coincidence? I also bought something for you." Shi Qing turned his head back and asked me to bring the box. Shi Qing smiled. "This is your birthday present. A gorgeous and delicate gold hairpin." Li's eyes lit up. Obviously she really likes it. It's just that he hesitated a little, his eyes were reluctant to part, and he forced a smile to close the box. "Daddy likes it very much, keep it for later." "Wait for the old man to die? Are you afraid that Grandpa doesn't like it?" Shi Qing suddenly asked. She stood up and opened the box, took out the hairpin and put it on Li's head carefully. "It's normal for him to not like good-looking colors at his age, but Dad, you are still young, so you can't cater to him." "Liking?" Shi Qing took 2 steps back and praised sincerely, "It looks good. It's just that the color of the clothes is too old-fashioned. If you want me to say that you are suitable for brightly colored clothes, you are young and good-looking." Shi Qing looked at Li Shi's eyes, and his heart was astringent. "You want to live be beautiful, rather than aggrieved yourself to live for others to see. Especially reject family pua. It's all nonsense." Shi Qing deliberately said, "If someone is not used to seeing it, it can only be because he has seen little, just like an uninformed dog who knows how to bark, he has to force a few words when he sees it." Li was slightly startled, but did not respond. "Whoever says my father is not good, I'm talking about whoever." Shi Qing closed the empty box with a pop. The dull sound seemed to knock on people's hearts. "If anyone embarrassed me, Dad, I not only insinuated, I also called him a dog by name." Shi Qing smiled and looked straight at Shiju. "Grandpa just finished saying I'm not educated this morning. I think a educated person like him will definitely not judge others' clothes, right?" Ju was speechless when he said a word. "Whoever makes her father difficult, she makes everyone worse. Take care of your own father." Li didn't want to clear Shi Qing's intentions, so she raised her hand to support the hairpin. "Okay, Daddy heard you clearly." Shi Qing went back to his yard after delivering the things. Shiju looked at Shi Qing's back and asked meaningfully, "Do you think Qing'er has changed a lot today?" "No matter how much Qing'er has changed, I can't compare to what I have changed since I married you." Li Shi carefully put away the box, feeling depressed. "I'm just in my early 30s, and I'm in my closet. The clothes are more old-fashioned than what your father is wearing. I don't want to care about these things, but I just beat him as a servant and he hurriedly called you and me back to do justice." Shiju was stunned for a moment, but did not expect the topic to turn to herself. Li Shi asked with red eyes, "I Qing'er can't compare to a slave in his heart? You and your father don't care for Qing'er, my daughter, and I hurt myself. Your father, wait for you, I will wear the clothes I like and the gold hairpin I bought from Qing'er on my birthday tomorrow." Li stood up and walked into the back room. "I am the one that Qing'er said about the marriage. It's okay to be a dad. Not to mention marrying young Master Yun, he would agree to marrying young Master Yun." Shiju hurried to catch up. "Don't be angry. She didn't dare to talk more about her clothes, she only talked about Shi Qing's marriage. I didn't say I disagree with her marrying the young son of the Yun family, even if she didn't mention it herself, because for the reason of the eldest prince, no one in the court has dared to say that he would marry his son into the Shi family. Shi Ju frowned. It would be the best outcome to marry the son of a merchant who has nothing to do with the court. In the future, when the Qing dynasty enters the court, the cleaner and simpler the relationship, the better. Li's attention was really diverted, and she asked softly, "When will we come to propose marriage?" "Go tomorrow after your birthday." It was dark. Little Er of the coffin shop came into the courtyard from the back door of Shifu with a long and tight box with a lid. Shi Qing lifted the cloth covering it and checked it, and paid only after seeing that there was no bump. Mihi's scalp was numb. "Little master, why are we so scary in the yard when we make a coffin? Have you not heard a word?" Shi Qing patted the coffin board, "Seeing the coffin makes a fortune." Shi Qing didn't tell Mihi the truth, in fact, she listed other things besides the coffin. She saw several stores when she went out today, and she felt good. She plans to let Mihi talk about it tomorrow to see if she can buy it. When she leaves in the future, her father will definitely not embarrass Yunji. In the Yun family, he has always been called to be stronger. It was twilight and there was no lamp in the courtyard. Mihi went to prepare bath water for Shiking. Shiking stood in the yard by himself, lowered his eyes and stroked the coffin board with his fingertips. She arranged things behind her in the shortest possible time. Even Yunji, who had never been masked, thought of it. Shi Qing sat on the coffin lid in a daze, thinking about what he had missed. "When I looked up inadvertently, I saw a cat-like figure jumping up on the wall." Shi Qing took a breath. The other party obviously saw her sitting on the coffin as soon as he stood on the wall. The two looked at each other, and even the air was silent for a few seconds, and then tacitly shouted, "Ah, there's a ghost! Shit! Catch the thief!" Shi Qing took off her shoes and threw them against the wall. Her grandfather's, dare to miss her good coffin. Half an hour ago Yunji left Yiqing in the mansion after dark, and changed into his night clothes. "Are you really going?" Yiqing looked at Yunji worriedly, and hesitantly persuaded, "Why don't we just forget about it? It can't be counted." Yunji stepped on the stool, bent over to tie his ankles, and clenched his teeth to tighten the straps. "I have never suffered this grievance since I was a child." "You have suffered a lot of grievances like this since you were a child." Yiqing swallowed the words back and walked around Yunji, her face wrinkled like a bitter gourd, "But it's too dangerous." "Dangerous?" As if hearing a joke, Yunji threw off his clothes and landed on the ground, reaching out and pulling the black mask around his neck across the bridge of his nose. He squeezed his fingers and chased them to the yard. "Then be careful. It is others who should be careful. It's just that he is a man and doesn't hit women." Yunji followed Shi Qing several times during the day, from Babao Pavilion to the coffin shop, once suspected that she was discovered by her, so she deliberately took a detour, and finally entered Shifu. "Shijia?" Yunji asked Yiqing about it. "The Shi family is not a wealthy family, but the three masters of the Shi family, the Li family's father family, are quite rich, and they are simply rich in the local Qingshan county. For Li's son, the old Li family loves them very much. Even if they have been married for many years, every time they celebrate the new year or catch up with Li's birthday, they will send several carts of gold, silver, and jade from Qingshan county. Come with Saturn. The thing came into the house yesterday afternoon." Yunji stood under the Shifu wall, his eyes shining. "Gold, here he comes." Yunji promises that he won't take much. A gentleman loves money in a proper way. He only takes the hard work in the morning. The curfew will be half an hour later. Yunji circled around Shi's house, and finally found a yard with no light. It must be an abandoned backyard. God bless him. Although the light in the courtyard is dim, except for the face that cannot be seen clearly, the outlines of other things that should be seen and should not be seen can be seen. The moment Yunji looked at the past, the other party seemed to look at him when he raised his head. The two looked at each other at a short distance. Tonight the moon is half full, the cold moonlight shines in the courtyard, a gust of cold wind blows, and the red clothes on the coffin stir up the long hair. Yelling, unless two, scary, people, two. Ah, the two of them screamed at the same time, crawling all over the floor in fright. There's a ghost. Yunji's heart throbbed in his chest, his back was frizzy like a cat, he didn't hesitate, how to jump up and down. What is that? His legs were all soft, he leaned against the wall and caressed his beating heart. You scared the young master to death. Shiking in the courtyard jumped up almost instantly, took off his shoes and threw them at the wall. Damn! Catch the thief! A thief misses her coffin board. It's really not old. The servant in the house heard the voice and rushed out. Where is the thief? Shi Qing turned his head, stunned the two timid servants. Can it still be useful? Shi Qing stretched out his fingers against the wall and almost stomped his feet in anger. Go after me. She heard the voice and heard that it was the little fortune-telling liar that morning. My good guy, it didn't work, and he started stealing over the wall. Find someone to check for me and see who dares to break into my shifu at night. When everyone was done walking, Shi Qing put down the burden of the young adults, exhaled and slowly sat down on the coffin board. Who scared me to death? When I looked up, I suddenly saw a person who almost died prematurely. Mihi. Are you sure you are scared? Mihi picked up the shoes for Shiking and put them on. Out of the corner of the eye, he glanced at the two who were still lying on the ground, his eyelids twitching. Who scare who? You scare the thief. Yun Fulai. After Yunji climbed over the wall and left, Ye Qing had been sitting on the steps in the courtyard waiting for him. With only half a stick of incense, he jumped back from the wall. Yu Qing patted the dust on her buttocks in surprise and ran over. Little master, have you found any gold? Yunji didn't even have the strength to go back to the house. He sat on the steps where Ye Qing was sitting just now, and said in a hoarse voice, I found it. He shuddered. I was discovered. Yunji said with difficulty to Ye Qing, the main reason is that the Shi family is haunted, which is especially scary, so stay away in the future. Yu Qing took a deep breath, and his face was obviously more hesitant. What's wrong? Yunji asked him. Yu Qing bit her lip and clenched her fingers. Little young master, you are not in the mansion this afternoon. I heard something from the Lord, it seems to have come from Shifu. I didn't dare to tell you because I wasn't sure. Yunji looked up at him suspiciously. Yu Qing's eyes struggled and she whispered, I heard that Mr. Xiao, oh, the one you followed during the day. What's wrong? She said she wanted to marry you. The backyard of Yunfu. Have you caught the thief? The old man came out in a coat. There was a lot of noise outside, he all lay down and came out on crutches. Lao Su's eyes flickered, and he stepped forward to support the old man's arm. I don't know if the thief has been caught, but when the people arrived, they saw the little master standing barefoot on the coffin. Ghost. Just as scary. The old man stopped slightly when he sat down. Coffin. Older people are the most taboo for this kind of thing. The old man's face sank on the spot. There is no coffin in the house. You don't know, the little master just bought it today. Lao Su lowered his voice. I heard from the porter that the coffin was delivered when it was dark. The old man sighed and put his cane on the ground. Who did she buy this for? Did she buy it for me? It's so outrageous. The old man stood up angrily. Call her over for me. I want to ask her who the coffin is going to be used for. Master, don't be angry. Do you think that little master is very wrong today? Lao Su advised. When he said that, the old man thought about it carefully, and snorted coldly. She has lost her mind. In the past, Shi Qing was like an elm knot. No matter what he said, he didn't know how to call him. Among the younger generation of his old friends, there is no one who is as taciturn as Shi Qing. Like her father, Mrs. Li, she cannot be on the table. The little master was so good-natured before, you said that she can't speak the West, but if you look at today's little master, she dares to hit Jinzan in front of you, it's just a different person. The more old Su said, the more frightening he felt. The old man clenched the red chestnut cane in his hand and looked up at Lao Su. What do you mean? I mean, should we invite an old man to come and have a look? Lao Su said, the little master's temperament has changed a lot, maybe he can't bear the bad news after being divorced. Getting in by dirty things. Resurrection? Speaking of this at night, both of them felt hairy, as if there was an invisible wind blowing in from their backs. The old man asked Lao Su to light up the wick, gather the clothes on his shoulders, and put his hands on the cane. Old Chen should have some way, he knows more about these things. Elder Chen is the first friend the old man met after he entered Beijing. The old man said in a deep voice, just in time for Mrs. Li's birthday tomorrow, I asked Mr. Chen to bring someone over to take a look, but I want to see, what kind of dirty things can enter the door of my house. The old man's idea of exorcising ghosts is completely unknown to Shiking. Before she went to bed at night, she had the coffin tightly covered with cloth, and she also sent 2 daring guards. She wants to see who dares to steal. Shi Qing lay on the bed and pulled out the transparent panel again. The health bar is still the thin blood skin. Maybe it has bottomed out, so I can't see whether the health value has decreased after a day. Shi Qing hides the panel, completely accepting that being able to live one day is the end of one day. It's like a knife resting on the neck, and only indifference is left after fear. The old lady is like this, if it doesn't work, it will be destroyed. Have a good night's sleep and wake up the next morning. Shi Qing sat dazedly on the bed to wake up. If the panel was still there, she would have thought that life was still on a normal track, flat without sadness and joy, instead of playing every day like now are all limits. But the limit is exciting. In the past, Shi Qing always felt that it was not a big deal for the old man to pick on the thorns. He would endure it when he was old, and a gentleman could wait 10 years for revenge. Results for a while, the more you think, the more you get angry, and the more you take a step back, the more you lose. Now it's different, if she's in a hurry like her, revenge can't wait until tomorrow, and the slap should be thrown. Today her father's birthday, Shi Qing was in a beautiful mood and chose a brighter dress. He applauded, little master looks so good in this talcum powder. What does she look good in with this face? Shi Qing tied himself a high ponytail and tied it with a crown. Many. My little lord asked the lord to wear more brightly colored clothes yesterday. If you want me to see, you should also wear more. He bent over to tidy up the sleeves for Shiking. Let's go back and let the tailor shop more. 2 brightly colored spring clothes were sent, and those grey and navy blue robes like yours in previous years were thrown away. Shi Qing looked at himself in the bronze mirror and nodded. It is not impossible. Shi Qing went to Li's yard after cleaning up. Although today is Li's birthday, in fact, I didn't invite any guests. I plan to liven up my family casually and give some reward money to the servants in the house. When the family came to the capital for more than 10 years, during this period, the old man had several friends, but Mrs. Li had never made any friends, not like a group of handkerchiefs when they were not married in Qingshan County. The capital is big, and there are many nobles, standing on the tower and throwing bricks at will, and the people who hit it may be royal family members. Li used to be quite confident. After all, there is no second man in Qingshan County who is better looking than him. Even in the capital, his appearance is also top-notch. But when he arrived in the capital, he felt that he was being compared. In terms of money, the most important thing in the capital is the rich. In terms of face, the old man said that he looks too flamboyant and does not look like a peaceful person. Because of his face, the old man gave him a lot of looks in the 2 years after he got married. What he meant was that he was not a gentleman. In the past 10 years, Mrs. Li has been dressed in plain clothes and not seen by outsiders, just to prove that she is not what he said. In the end, the old man began to pick on him again, saying that he said he had a flamboyant and unflattering appearance, and there was no talent ink inside. After being talked about by him for a long time, Mrs. Li felt like a dwarf when she went out, as if all the men she saw were all at the level of the champion, except for him, an illiterate embroidered pillow old hat, lost Shigia people. I was wearing this set today, and I only dared to secretly wear the plum-dyed winter robe that I took off and put away after half an hour. Dad! Shi Qing came over. Li Shi seemed to have found the backbone, and asked cautiously, "Will Daddy wear this dress too brightly, and he doesn't look calm and old-fashioned enough?" He hesitated to change his clothes. "Why don't you still wear the dark blue one? After all, the master's original wife usually wears solid color clothes. We are our own family today, and there are no outsiders, so we don't have to dress so formally. Besides, it's your birthday today, we can wear whatever color we want." Shi Qing cooperated with me. The two of them complimented Li's compliments in a sentence, as if he was an immortal in this outfit. The main thing is not what to wear, but to let Li regain her confidence and not to be accustomed to the old man. "Man, you must reject family pua first." Li smiled, "Then don't change it, I also think it looks good. Where is my mother?" Shi Qing looked around. Shi Qing could see Li Shi's unease. He was completely unconfident in front of the old man. The old man came from a scholarly family. Although he was in decline when he got married, he still regarded himself as a lady. In his opinion, a family with no culture and only money like Li is the most vulgar. That's why he was so angry after Shi Qing was divorced by the Shen family. First, he felt that he lost face, and second, he was somber, talented and civilized in the capital. When he got married, he had a face, which just made up for the regret of his daughter and husband's lack of culture. When the two arrived, Jinzhen came out to speak. Shi Qing raised his eyebrows slightly and put his hand in front of him. "Hey, look at this slap, it's hard and fast." The scalp of Calendula was tense, and the two sides of the face began to feel hot and painful. She didn't dare to be presumptuous, and told the truth. "The old man has just woken up, let you wait here for a while." This is a deliberate look at the father and daughter. Li's face showed timidity, maybe it was because she was not wearing the color of clothes that the old man liked. Shi Qing lifted Li's foot directly into the door and said loudly, "Grandpa is too polite, we will come as soon as we come, and we don't need him to come out to greet him after packing up, we come in and sit by ourselves." She pushed Li Shi, who was shocked, on the chair, and began to call the servants just like in her own courtyard. "Jinzhen, go and bring a plate of red bean cake, I feel good after eating yesterday. Bring it to my father to taste." Jinzhen clenched her fingers. Shi Qing looked at her coldly. "Go." Simple word, heavy on Jinzhen's heart, dare not refute a sentence. "Yes." Jinzhen reluctantly retreated. Li looked at Shi Qing in astonishment. Jinzhen was almost the Shi family's little master by default in Shifu, and now she didn't dare to say a word in front of Shi Qing. Shi Qing shouted, "Lao Su, Lao Su." She began to call Jinzhen's grandfather, "Why don't you know how to serve tea?" Mrs. Li wanted to cover Shi Qing's mouth. Can she call this person? The old man might get angry when he heard it. Shi Qing shouted a few times, not only calling out Lao Su, but also calling out the old man. As long as they don't have these voices, the father and daughter can sit for an hour. The old man was leaning on crutches and his face was gloomy. Before he started to attack, Shi Qing said first, "How can you let Grandpa come in person for this kind of tea? Lao Su, why are you so lacking in eyesight? See, in Shifu for so many years, how can you even serve the master? Poor tea," she said lazily, "we don't keep idle people in our house." The old man's eyes skipped directly and fell on Li Shiking. Like a rabbit stared at by an eagle, his cold hair exploded and he let out a low cry, "Dad! What are you wearing?" The old man reprimanded. Li's eyes were red, and before the grievances spread, Shi Qing smashed a teacup on the ground. Shi Qing stood up and pointed at the teacup and cursed, "What are these things?" Everyone didn't react at all. Shi Qing said to the old man, "This teacup is not very particular, the color is so frivolous, it is not suitable for your eyes at first glance, it is not a serious teacup. Grandpa, don't worry, tomorrow I will bring you a new batch of dark old, east and west ones." She picked up another teacup and looked at the old man, "If you don't like the fresh and tender colors, I will help you smash it all today." The old man breathed heavily, his chest heaved up and down, You don't need to praise me, I know that I am considerate and filial." Shi Qing was sitting in a chair with a teacup in his hand, and asked him with a smile, "Grandpa, do you think my father now is this dress still eye-catching today?" The old man clenched his cane tightly, but his forehead was actually sweating. Now, the more he looks at Shiking, the more he feels that this child is unfamiliar, maybe there is something dirty on him. He always thought Shi Qing's was stupid and unpleasant before, but it was better than being ignorant now. Lao Su just came in with tea, and in the cold spring season, there was no smoke in the teacup. He held the tea in front of Mrs. Li with a smile on his face, with contempt and disdain in his eyes. Shi Qing slammed a teacup at his feet with a sullen face, "I reward you, drink it." Shi Qing lifted his eyelids to look at Lao Su, then stood up slowly and walked in front of him. The low and heavy aura was suppressed. "If you live enough, it's not impossible for me to send you the coffin first." She is very generous when she should be generous. Lao Su's face was instantly pale, goosebumps all over his body, and he said shiveringly, "Don't dare to bother the little master, I and the old slave will go to make tea again." Shi Qing smiled and restrained all the coldness from her body. "Look, isn't this very good at doing things?" The old man looked at Shang Shiking and almost passed out with anger. Shi Qing asked Mihi to clean the teacups on the floor, and said to the old man, "Grandpa, wake up, Shi's family has changed. I don't like your way of suppressing people." This is the second time when Shi Qing was driven out of the yard by the old man, but this time he was accompanied by the Li family. Grandpa's other things are okay, but his mind is too small. Shi Qing pinched the tip of his little finger with his thumbnail and gestured to Mrs. Li, "That's it." How to say, it is quite uneducated, as expected, every kind of minion has what kind of master. It's all customary. Qing Li Shi suddenly stopped to look at Shi Qing. Shi Qing stopped and looked at him suspiciously, "What's wrong?" Li sighed softly, "Your mother said yesterday that you feel that you have changed a lot in the past 2 days, like a different person. Such things like today, Shiking would not have done before." Shi Qing's heart jumped. She didn't care what Shiju and others thought of her, but she didn't want to be an outlier in Li's eyes. He held his breath involuntarily. Shi Qing clenched his fingers, and did not dare to meet Li's eyes. "Then, what does Dad think?" "Dad thinks the change is quite big." Li Shi smiled and reached out to touch Shiking's profile, his eyes full of love, "But Daddy thinks this is the real Qing'er, the complete daughter of Daddy." Shi Qing's eyes trembled slightly and looked up at him. Li's tone was gentle, "Since the previous serious illness, you have been silent and reserved, and now you only look a little fresh. You are the flesh that fell from your father's body. Who is your father better than I know my daughter?" Shi Qing's nose was suddenly blocked by heat, and his chest was sour and stuffy. She took a deep breath and blinked away the enthusiasm in her eyes, pretending to be relaxed. After all, after experiencing great joys and sorrows, there are always some changes. Li sneered at her, "Where are you going?" He said mysteriously, "Daddy specially invited 2 guests to your door for you today." Li is only in her early 30s this year. Because of the good maintenance, the clothes she wears are fresh and tender. It seems that everyone in her 20s will believe her. When he said this, his expression was a little proud, as if he was asking Shiking for credit. Shi Qing asked cooperatively, "Dad, who did you invite?" "He invited the head of the Yun family and young Master Yun." Li's birthday invited them over, which is self-evident. This time it is a simple way for the two children to see each other. If the Yun family is interested, the family will come to ask for relatives tomorrow. If the Yun family doesn't have this intention, then they can only discuss and discuss, instead of rushing over and being turned away. Shi Qing gave Li Shi a thumbs up with both hands and exaggeratedly said, "Dad, you are amazing, even if you are rejected, you want to think for me, who said I didn't read it? You can't be smart if you read a book, I think my dad is awesome." Li was embarrassed to be praised. In recent years, he has rarely heard people praise him for being smart. "Don't worry, Qing, there is nothing that our family can't discuss." Shi Qing thought that her father wanted to use power to suppress others, and Shiju, as the imperial censor, was the third-rank official residence. It's more than enough to say. Who knew that Mrs. Li raised her hand and twisted her hair, looked at her sideways, and said lightly, "Our family is rich. If you can't do it, just spend money, no one will be tempted by gold and silver." Shi Qing supported Li's arm and walked forward. The clothes on both of them were brightly colored. In this season when the spring flowers have not yet bloomed, they are obviously the two most beautiful colors in the whole yard. The color matches his skin. "Our father and daughter are the most beautiful cubs in the Shi family." Shi Qing looked proud. She said, "Dad, you can wear what you want in the future. Next time you are hesitant, think about today. I wear the same clothes as you." It's been a long time since Mr. Li felt so comfortable at the old man's place. His brows and eyes were full of smiles, and he nodded repeatedly, "Okay." Shi Qing let go of Mrs. Li, picked out a leaf from the flower pot by the roadside, and tentatively said, "Dad, why don't you have another one with my mother?" She patted her chest and assured, "Whether it's a younger sister or a younger brother, I will not compete for favor. Li is young now and can regenerate. In case he left, he would at least have a child." Li's face blushed at what Shi Qing said, and looked at her sideways. "You are all about to start a family, it would be a shame to have another father." It is not easy for him to tell his daughter this kind of thing, so he changed the subject directly. "I'm going to reply to your grandma today, and you can help Dad write it." Li doesn't know how to read or write. Shiju taught him before. Seeing that Li's learning is really painful, he is not willing to continue teaching. Of course, this matter falls in the ears of the old man. Stupid. In the past few years, Shiju wrote the letter for Li's family. Later, she wanted to show off and make her family happy. Li asked Shi Qing to write, and every time she finished, she would give her some gadgets, take her completely as a child who wants candy. "Maybe I was happier today." Mrs. Li rambled about a lot of things. Shi Qing was not impatient, and quietly wrote a letter for him. Qingshan County is really a bit far from the capital. The Li family will only bring their family to the capital once in a few years, so I am afraid that when too many people come, the old man will look at Li's face. So the family letter is the only tool that Li's family can communicate with. The water splashed by the married son obviously does not apply in the Li family. Even though Li's daughter is 17, he is still regarded as the young master in the Li family, the heart and soul of the second elder of the Li family, and the younger brother of his sister. Although the old man is not likable, the second elder of the Li family is pleased that Shiju is gentle and patient, and he has never been single-minded to Li for so many years. This is not forcing her to do it. Yes, it seems invaluable. Li talked about her life in Beijing in detail, and greeted her parents and her husband's family. When it was over, Li paused and suddenly stopped talking. Shi Qing looked up at him, and the pen stopped. "Dad, are you done?" "No." Mr. Li shook his head slowly, took out a towel and wiped the wet corners of his eyes. "Add one last sentence." He put the handkerchief against the tip of his nose, and his voice was slightly choked. He said, "Old, don't worry, Qinger has grown up." In just a few words, Mrs. Li's tears couldn't stop falling. Shi Qing squeezed the pen and didn't speak, only lowered his head and conveyed it neatly for him. After writing the letter, Mr. Li cleaned up his emotions and took out a good inkstone from the box. Shi Qing went out from his parents' home, holding a slightly heavy inkstone in his hand. Today, Shifu hosted a banquet. Although Li has no friends, it is obvious that the old man has invited many people over. Shi Qing and Mihi stopped to look. Those who didn't know thought that the person who passed the birthday was the grandfather. The bluestone road leading to the backyard is full of a few friends of the old man. Shi Qing had no interest at first until he looked up and saw a grey figure behind him. Mihi. When Shi Qing came out of Li's place, he was actually in a heavy mood, but now he suddenly regained his energy, and pointed at the man. Is she dressed exactly the same as that little liar? Mihi looked up and saw a Taoist priest behind the crowd. The other party is chubby, looks in his 30s, and is holding a white whisk in his hand. She walked behind her, her eyes darting around. That's right. It's almost the same. Mihi was excited. Isn't this a coincidence? Yesterday, a small one came, and today an old one came. Shi Qing rolled up his sleeves and ran over with Mihi, but the other party caught a glimpse of the two of them out of the corner of his eye, and he subconsciously raised his feet and ran. At first she was just a little suspicious, but now she immediately confirmed the suspicion. Stop for me! Shi Qing shouted. The name of the Taoist priest is Bai Fu, and he is not a Taoist at all. He usually likes to cheat some money in the backyard of the dignitaries, and his specialty is to fry the kid. How can Bai Fu know how to catch ghosts? She plans to go through the cutscene to fool her. I never expected to walk a little slower and fall behind when I saw someone running towards her. Run! The more Shi Qing chased her, the faster she ran. The ability to escape for so many years is not in vain. I'll let you stand for me. Shi Qing still didn't outperform others, squinted slightly, weighed the inkstone in his hand, and threw it hard at the fat figure in front who almost crossed the threshold past. The sound of dong. Bai Fu was hit in the back, his foot stumbled on the threshold, and he fell directly on the ground with an ouch. Shi Qing caught up and stepped on her back, squatted down and panted, "Let you run." She fanned her face with her hot hands. You two master and apprentice really run faster than the other. Can't she catch the old? Besides, I still have an inkstone in my hand today, which is much easier to use than shoes. Shi Qing reached out and picked up the inkstone. Shi Qing unreasonably handed the inkstone to Bai Fu. Good doin' inkstone, please pay me for it. Bai Fu's back was stepped on, struggling to turn his head. His eyes moved from the inkstone to Shi Qing's bright and beautiful face, and he was relieved. Not the one who deceived himself. Then why is she chasing herself? My lord, we have never known each other and have no enmity. You can smash me with an inkstone. Isn't it a bit unreasonable to ask me to pay now? Although we don't know each other well, but I have met your apprentice twice. Shi Qing held the inkstone to reason with her. Be honest, what about others? Bai Fu has always fed himself and his family is not hungry. Where is there any apprentice? Why can't I understand what you said? Shi Qing stretched out to pick up the Taoist robe on her body and slapped her on the back. Even the clothes are the same, why are you acting stupid here? Bai Fu lost his words for a while, almost got up from the ground in anger, and was stepped back by Shi Qing. These clothes are just bought on the street. How could Shi Qing know that Taoist robes are still being sold on the street? She thought it was the uniform of the martial art. Now that Bai Fu refuses to admit it, she feels that the other party is protecting her apprentice. Okay, let's see how hard you can be. The servants of the Shi family had already run over with the guy. Shi Qing raised his feet and stood beside him. Hit me until she tells the truth. The subordinates are all egged. Bai Fu keeps saying, I don't know what you are talking about. Hey, the relationship between master and apprentice is quite good, but I refuse to admit it. Shi Qing pulled the hem of his clothes and wiped the inkstone. I tell you, I have a lot of methods, Think about it. Say it again. Bai Fu was about to cry. She really doesn't have an apprentice, and she can't just make an apprentice out of nothing. Shi Qing waved her hand, the servants spread out, she lifted the hem of her clothes and squatted in front of Bai Fu. This old liar eats white and tender food. It seems that his life is good. Since you said you don't have an apprentice, what are you doing in Shifu? Shi Qing patted her face lightly with an ink's tone. Didn't he come to step on you to cheat and steal? Bai Fu's forehead was sweating. I came with Chen Lao to hunt for ghosts, and there are ghosts at home. Shi Qing paused. Mr. Chen? Shi Qing still didn't understand that this man was invited by the old man to arrest him. But that doesn't prevent the person from knowing the little liar. What about your apprentice, is he also hiding among the guests today? Shi Qing asked her. If you don't tell the truth, I will send you to Dali Temple. Bai Fu begged for mercy. I really don't have an apprentice, I'm here to hunt ghosts. I'm still stubborn. Shi Qing scolded. I have no apprentices. What are you doing without your apprentice? I'll hunt ghosts. You're here to lie. The conversation between the two was repeated back and forth, and Bai Fu had to wonder if this person was not smart enough to understand human language. I'll ask you one last time. Shi Qing lowered his voice. Yantai swayed in front of Bai Fu. Are you here to hunt ghosts or to deceive people? Bai Fu was swept in, his mind was stunned, and he said directly, I'm here to lie. Shi Qing smiled. Me, he pointed her finger. It turned out to be a lie. Things are instantly easier. Bai Fu's face was pale, and he hurriedly changed his words. I'm wrong, I'm here to hunt ghosts. Shi Qing asked people to tie her up, send it to Dali Temple, and say that a liar has been caught, and they will have a good trial. Judging from the attitude of the Taoist priest who just ran away when she called him, he might have deceived many old men like Chen before he came to the house, and made up a ghost story to empty the other party's private money. Both are possible. Oh, that's right, Shi Qing pointed out. Let the people at Dali Temple carefully ask where her apprentice is hiding. Bai Fu couldn't help but refute. I really don't have an apprentice. Shi Qing shook his head and said, I don't believe it. Her expression of I knew you were tough was so irritating. Bai Fuxian vomited out a mouthful of blood and fainted. Here, Shi Qing has already sent people to Dali Temple, where Chen Lao is still bragging about how powerful the Beifu Taoist he invited is. That little devil, she would just freeze and fry it in a frying pan. It's terrible, Chen Lao said, no matter how powerful a ghost sees her, she will be blown away, so don't worry. He was holding a teacup, he was talking just now and didn't even care about drinking it. Now that I finished speaking, I lowered my eyes and said, Hey, old time, why did you change the teacup here? This color is too old-fashioned and not good looking. The two beautiful ones are all broken. The old man's face was gloomy, and Lao Su didn't dare to speak. Why hasn't Beifu Daoist come yet? The old man asked. Come here. Old Chen's servant rushed over from the outside in a hurry, and almost knocked on the threshold when he entered the door. Chen Lao put down the teacup and asked, Where's Daoist Beifu? The old man also leaned forward. The next person looked at the two of them and said slowly, Beifu Daoist met the little master of Shi's family on the road. Old Chen clapped his thigh with a happy face. It looks like he has already won it, and now he may be waiting for the frying pan. The old man finally relaxed, leaning back on the chair slightly. That's good, that's good. He was really afraid of that thing. Chen Lao laughed. You must see it with your own eyes when you fry it in a frying pan later. The kid's screaming is especially miserable, but you can relieve your anger. He stood up and asked the servant, Where is Daoist Beifu now? The servant's face was ugly. I was sent to Dali Temple. What? Chen Lao couldn't hear clearly. What's going on? Facing the eyes of the old man and Chen Lao, the servant stammered, Beifu Daoist was beaten by the little master, and he screamed miserably. Old Chen gasped and fell back on the chair. but the old man stood up with a cane, took a few steps forward and asked in disbelief, "Shiking beat the Taoist?" The servant nodded. "He has a blue nose and a swollen face, and he was vomiting blood when he left." The ghost hunter was trampled on the ground and beaten by the ghost. That scene. "I am old.